Good evening, everyone. This meeting is being held in accordance with the schedule of meetings adopted at the organizational meeting held January 6, 2020. Adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Kenilworth Board of Education has been provided to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the local source. A copy has been filed with the Kenilworth Borough Clerk, posted in the board office, the Kenilworth Borough Hall, Burley and Harding Schools, as is provided by the Open Public Meetings Act. COVID-19 compliance was updated on December 9th, 2020. This will be an in-person meeting. The meeting location has been moved to the David Burley Cafeteria. Due to COVID-19 modifications to the indoor capacities issued by the state of New Jersey, in-person participation is limited due to social distancing requirements and the size of the meeting room. The Board of Education therefore has calculated that 30 members of the public will be able to participate in person. In accordance with the Board of Education Bylaw 0164.6, remote public board meetings during a declared emergency, and in an effort to encourage and increase public participation, the meeting will be live streamed, and the public will be able to view live via YouTube live stream. The link will be available at 7:30 p.m. by clicking the Board of Education tab on the Kenilworth District homepage, then the Board of Education YouTube channel tab, where you will be able to see the live stream icon. If members of the public are unable to attend the meeting in person and do not have internet access to watch the live stream, they will have an opportunity to call in to listen to the meeting. The members of the public requesting this accommodation must request to do so by 3 p.m. prior to the meeting to obtain the call-in information and password codes. Please direct a request to Ms. Sandel, the Business Administrator Secretary. Public comment will be accepted as follows: electronically via email to publiccomments@publicschools.com. These messages must be received by 4:00 p.m. on the night of the board meeting. All emails received by the deadline will be read during the public comment section of the meeting. Comments will also be accepted in person at the meeting venue during the public comment section of the meeting, and by calling into the meeting venue at 908-931-9696, extension 2325, during the public comment section of the meeting. For the record, please include your name and address in all comment requests. In accordance with Board of Education Bylaw 0155.1, board member participation at the board meetings using electronic device, board members will have an opportunity, if needed, to participate via the Zoom meeting platform. That concludes the lengthy Open Public Meeting Act. So remember, we used to be able to do that in about 2 lines. We ask for your indulgence this evening. We are trying a very new setup. We are doing an in-person meeting, we are doing a Zoom meeting, and we are live streaming via YouTube. So we are basically doing 3 meetings in one setup. Mr. David?
Okay, at this time, would everyone please rise to salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Mr. Ganella, can we have a roll call?
Biner.
Here.
Braun.
Here.
David.
Here.
Drogan.
Here, I guess.
Okay. Haberther.
Here.
Jankowicz.
Here.
Ladati.
Here.
Panici.
Here.
Zimmerman.
Here.
All members present.
Okay, we can proceed. Our first item is the receiving of the minutes of the secretary from the November 9th meeting. If there are no corrections, would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, I heard a motion from Mrs. Zimmerman. Do I have a second? I see Mr. Ladati's hand up, so second by Mr. Ladati. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Next up is reading and acceptance of our monthly correspondence. Mr. Ganella.
Yes, we have 3 items this evening. We have the certification results of the general election for Board of Education member from November 3rd, 2020. We have a letter dated 11/30 from the Borough Clerk to Mr. Arlington regarding Mr. Arlington being named Kenilworth Employee of the Year. And we have a letter from the Executive County Superintendent to the Winfield Board of Education President regarding representation from the sending district to the receiving district Board of Education regarding board representation on the board. That's public correspondence for the month.
Aye. Is anyone opposed? Okay. Correspondence approved. Next on the agenda is our superintendent's report and presentations. Mr. Arlington.
Thank you, President David. Good evening. To help introduce and tell you more about our students being spotlighted tonight, I'm pleased to introduce their principal, Mr. Davies.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. It is a pleasure to be here tonight to recognize Mr. Ulasovich and his students who have launched the Be Nice Company at David Brearley High School. So the Be Nice Company is a clothing and apparel company whose mission it is to simply be nice and to think about others. And through the sale of clothing and apparel with the company's slogan on it, the Be Nice Company spreads good feelings while also donating any profit to local charity. The company has chosen the Kenilworth VFW as its target for the fall 2020 proceeds. And this is from the Be Nice Company's website. It says, through the creation of this brand, we hope to learn a number of practical skills such as web design, apparel design, marketing, social media management, and community outreach. While we learn these skills, our objective is to simply put a smile on everyone's face. We aim to help people be nice to both one another and themselves. And we want to just take a moment tonight to recognize these students and the efforts of their company and Mr. Ulasovich, because what a great message, right? To have this academic setting and to have this class and to have this company whose ultimate goal is just be nice to people. And I think it says so much about who our students are here at David Brearley. Sometimes young people get a bad rap, right? And sometimes we think of them as young people, like, oh. But really, they have such big hearts. And I think that's the message that I wanted to express to everyone tonight, is that the David Brearley students, they have empathy, they have compassion, they think of others, and they're tying together all these things. When you think about these students, we have 13 students here tonight, not here, but part of this company, and they're representing grades 10 through 12. So it spans much of the high school. And there's students from Web Design 1, Web Design 2, Imaging and Concepts, and Multimedia Art and Design. The skills that they're engaging in include photography, photo editing, graphic design, website design, clothing design, marketing, entrepreneurship, social media management, community outreach. So there's so many things that are happening. And so I want to say, first of all, thank you to Mr. Ulasovich and kudos for facilitating this project with our students and this company. And then also to the students, what a great opportunity and what a great way for making David Brearley look great and to spread good messages, especially in, it's December, it's a dark month, there's a pandemic, but you guys are focused on others. And so many of us could be turning into ourselves right now, but you instead are focusing on other people. Just a couple of quick quotes. Camilla Quinalia said that through the Be Nice Company, the community receives insight on the hardworking, compassionate students that make up David Brearley and the willingness of young people to sacrifice time and work for a good cause. And also Vaughn Maranka said, the goal is to think about others. And so I just think that's really just special that our youngsters here at David Brearley are thinking about others. And so we wanted to take time to recognize you guys and just say thank you for combining big hearts with what's going on in the class, right? All right. And if we could just take a few moments to call each of the students by name. Mr. Ulasovich, would you come forward, actually, and just assist me with this? Not all of our students were able to be here tonight, but if you could help me just pass out Brendan Barbosa, Annabella Floza, Justin Hemhauser. Josh Kratzer. Alexa Lima. Vaughn Marenka. Krishna Mehta. Michelle Montoya. Luke Padula. Samuel Pantano. Ryan Potter. Camilla Quinalia. And Angelina Vicente. So again, just to reiterate, you guys just really make me proud as your principal, and I know you make Mr. Ulasovich proud, and I thank the board for the opportunity to recognize your efforts both in class and outside of class, because I think it's really special that you guys have big hearts, and that speaks so highly of you, your generation, and the students of David Brearley. So thanks for all your work. I think we're going to do a picture. Mr. Ulasovich, you're in this too.
Make sure you're not losing the one behind the mic.
Very good, thank you.
That's nice.
I'm not sure if you folks want to hear about a solar project, an ESIP project, so this would be a great time for you to bow out gracefully. So thank you very much for coming though tonight, and have happy holidays and a good new year. Bye, everyone.
Nobody wants to hear about the solar project.
Yeah, no, it's terrific.
When I touch this, there's feedback. It's weird. Feedback somewhere. Yeah, it's. I think it's this. Okay. Thank you, everyone. That was very nice, especially this time of year, to hear such a nice presentation. Now we're getting to more of a technical presentation. So this evening, we're going to be talking about, with some of our professional consultants, presentation on our solar PPA, power purchasing agreement, and our ESIP, energy savings improvement plan. This is a program that for people who have been, our groupies who've been following us on YouTube, probably have been following since early spring, a project that we've been pursuing. Actually, if you talk about the solar project, it goes back even further. But the Energy Savings Improvement Program was something that we started last spring, that we started pursuing to see if it was a feasible project for us. So there's a whole bunch of logistics that need to go into this. We've already passed a couple of resolutions pertaining to this, but now we're getting more into the implementation phase, and we're going to be starting to kick off the actual projects, both the solar and the ESP project. So I thought it would be good for the full board, in addition to just the finance committee who has heard pieces of this before, to get an understanding of what's going on, especially when people will start seeing some, construction going on, especially solar panels going on the roofs and things like that. So I thought it'd be important to hear from some of our consultants specifically to address this project. So this evening, we have with us Scott Mahalik from SSP Architects, Tammy Stochko from SSP Architects, Lisa Gorab from Lintz, Goldman and Spitzer, who's our bond counsel, and Rabia Kampora, who is from Phoenix Advisor, who is our financial advisor. So this is basically our ESIP and our solar PPA team. So I'm going to turn it over to Scott, who will lead the discussion, and then he will bring in other individuals from the group to fill in where needed. So, Mr. Mahalik?
Yeah. Thanks, Vince. And, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of different hands that go into these types of projects. So, Lisa and Robbie and Tammy all have different points that they're bringing to this. These are in some ways unlike typical construction projects, and in other ways are exactly the same. Really, for the board, just a reminder, ESIP projects are really a funding mechanism. It allows you to leverage the savings that these projects will generate in your utility savings and use that savings to pay for the project themselves. In the past, if you could spend $1 on an improvement, and that would eliminate all of your utility bills in perpetuity, if you didn't have that $1, you couldn't do that project. The ESIP legislation allows you to do that and to leverage those savings. And there's a lot of safeguards in terms of third-party reviews and state reviews that go into making sure ahead of time that your calculations are correct and that your projects will work. The interesting part of what we're doing right now is that we have these energy projects that Tammy will talk about, but we also have a solar component that's being run in parallel, separate from the ESIP, but the savings from that solar project can be used to infuse into the ESIP project to get additional projects done. So they're very parallel, they're very intertwined, but they are separate, and that's why they're separate sets of resolutions and they're running a little bit differently. Tammy can really talk a little bit more direct about what the projects are, the timeline, the process, and then Lisa and Robbie from the legal and the financing, and unlike typical projects, there's a whole other bunch of hoops that we need to jump through that they'll be able to speak about as well. Once we get past all that, they become regular construction projects. But until we get there, we've got a few more things to head through. So, Tammy, you want to go through some of the project details?
Sure. So for the ESIP, essentially we are in what is considered a third-party review. So we have worked with the ESCO company to figure out what we would like to have done as part of this project. And we have a third-party engineer that's not involved in any of the design or planning. They're making sure that the energy calculations work out. From there, we'll go to a BPU submission to make sure it's approved by the utility companies. For the procurement of the ESIP projects, we're actually going to be split. A lot of Harding's projects will qualify for a direct install. So that will go directly through the direct install program through the state. And rarely, because it is a larger school, uses more utilities, we'll go through a more traditional design bid build project. So that would be more like your typical construction projects that Scott had referred to. Those will start most likely in construction starting about the summer of 21 and continue from there. As for solar, that is moving along as well. We are working with the solar. We have a kickoff meeting this week with the solar vendor. They've been through, they're doing their due diligence. We've got some emails today on some preliminary designs and structural calculations. And most likely my expectation in seeing some activity on the roof and building of solar systems would be early spring of 21. We're looking at about 5 weeks of construction on a solar system there. That's got to go through some checks and balances, utility approvals, your Kenilworth building approvals and permits as well. So there's some regulatory approvals there, which gets us a few months out, but about 5 weeks of construction on site. Solar happening on top of both buildings for that. But that's about what we're looking to do. Construction wise, I think with the ESUP, we were looking at the, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, we ended up with the chillers at both schools, two major rooftop units at Brearley, and lighting throughout both schools.
And the way the program functions is we can actually take alternate bids. If we think we're getting close on the budget, if we wind up getting good bid prices, we can do a little bit of over design so that we can accept additional alternate bids for any additional work that we can get within the program. The project needs to self-fund and pay itself back over a 15-year period. So as long as we stay within that window, we can go a little bit beyond the projects that we have, particularly outlined in the energy savings plan. Just one piggyback to what Tammy said. She talked a little bit about the direct install at Harding. Direct install is a state program that allows you to not have to go bid projects for smaller and simpler projects. So for example, at Harding, where we have a lot of one-for-one lighting replacement, but again, because of the utility size of Harding, it's small enough that it fits within the program, we can go that route. The biggest benefit to going direct install is that you're only paying for 20% of the project. That's a real big incentive anytime you can do that. It certainly gets you a lot of savings. So that's why we're doing that at Harding, which is the one building we can do that. So,
I'm not sure if we want to go to Lisa or Robbie on
Sure.
the legal or funding at this point.
Sure.
I can talk real quickly about the funding. The ESIP process allows for either the issuance of bonds or a lease purchase. The lease purchase is similar to an equipment lease. We could go out 15 years for the lease purchase, and that's the term that we are recommending here. So we're not going to issue bonds. This is going to be a lease that's allowable to out 15 years. It's simpler, less cost of issuance to the district. And I think that is the best option for the district. And I'll just talk about the mechanics of the financing and authorization.
Thank you. So just like stepping back, because this is a project that is tax neutral, this is a project where the energy savings are paying for the costs of the project financed over these 15 years, you're permitted to finance this through your own local authorization and resolutions, no referendum or voter approval needed. So what we would do is once the project has been, as Tammy said, submitted for third-party review, that's the independent engineer who confirms that the savings are accurate. So we know as a group, and you know as a board, the project's going to pay for itself. It's submitted to the BPU for yet another set of eyes to review and approve. Once that occurs, the board's in a position to then seek bids on the lease to finance it over 15 years. So we would be preparing a resolution for the board to consider likely at its January meeting, maybe the second January meeting or the first, I can't remember what was in the schedule.
It was the regular
where the
meeting.
board would authorize this process to start moving forward. And it really would do all of those things. It would authorize submission to BPU and authorize the seeking of proposals for the lease financing. We anticipate, Robbie, are you thinking a February, March closing?
I think late February, early March.
And at that time, the interest rate would be set and we would close the financing, and the architect and the ESCO would have the funds to start the ECMs, the energy conservation measures that would be undertaken at the schools.
we're actually, from a timing standpoint, no one could have predicted 2020, certainly. But from a financing rate standpoint and from the solar rate standpoint that we're seeing, we're really in the best position I think that we could have been in within the last several years. Both are really, really very favorable. Solar rates, certainly. We've never seen them this low, and the way the programs are changing, we expect them to start going back up. So we really did hit it exactly at the right point to try and maximize the size of what you can get and the savings of what you can get out of it. So that's a brief overview. We could, Vince knows I could talk about this for an hour. I'm sure nobody wants me to.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any questions. We can go deeper into any part of it. But we, as Vince said, wanted to give you just at least an overview of where we are on the process and what's due to come down the line in the next few months.
Yeah, that was definitely the Reader's Digest version. I mean, we've spent hours and hours, Zoom meetings mostly, going back and saying, well, what if we do this versus this? What if we replace the boilers as opposed to the chillers? How does that affect us? If we don't replace the boilers, how can we do that? The building management systems, so there were a lot of variables in there. So we've been, the whole summer we spent basically going back and forth trying to shore up what the specific projects are. So I do appreciate that. I think we might have a couple of questions, if there's anyone who has any questions for our panel of guests here this evening.
Yeah, I have a question, Vince. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
So a couple quick things. So I know lots of acronyms are being thrown out. That's just, every industry has its own world of acronyms, right? So just two quick ones. Can you just let us know what ESIP means and PPA means?
Sure.
And then, obviously I know what solar means, but you mentioned that there's it's almost like two different projects. So at the highest level, what's ESP and what's solar?
Okay.
And then just a quick question, the savings that we talk about, that includes the cost of paying for this project?
Yes.
Yes.
Right,
Yes, that's the easy question. I'll answer that
Go
one
ahead.
first. Yes.
Okay.
The acronyms, the solar PPA is a power purchasing agreement. If you recall back in, I think it was October, we approved that project.
Yep.
So basically, that is a company that will come in and take care of that aspect of it for us. And our project is essentially putting solar panels on our roofs. And we're using the Savings Act as one of the funding methods for the ESP, which is the Energy Savings Improvement Plan. Plan or program? I always get those two mixed up, Scott. What is it, plan or program?
Program.
Program. So it's Energy Savings Improvement Program. And that's all governed through the Board of Utilities down in Trenton. And that's how we're going to fund those other projects. The primary project, the savings that is generated is typically lighting projects. Fortunately or unfortunately, we've done several lighting retrofits in over the years since I've been here. We've relamped our entire both buildings, I think twice since I've been here. So we've already gained a lot of those savings. We even put in motion sensors in all the classrooms, which we generated some more savings. So from that perspective, there wasn't as much savings as we would have wanted, but the good news is we've already incurred those savings over the years because we've put those improvements in. Does that answer your question, Mark?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. So thank you, panel. I feel like
I think there is, Vincent. I think there's one more.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
You
Paulette?
said, I'm not clear, I hear everyone else very clearly, but I'm not hearing you. It's very garbled
Who's,
coming
me?
through. So I don't know if you can improve that or, there was also a question about some lighting that was going to be done.
Yes, all the lights are going to be,
But I can't hear you.
all the lights are going to be relamped. Can you hear me now?
A little bit, but it's garbled. Mark, you?
Maybe. I don't have any issues, but I have my headset on, my headphones on. So that's probably the issue.
You're not clear. Everyone else is, but I don't know.
You're
So the
wearing a
lighting
mask,
was,
Vincent, they're not.
I know.
Yeah, I can answer Vince maybe because I might be a
Okay.
little easier to understand. But yes, the lighting in both buildings will be relamped, going to LED lighting so that you won't have a need to replace the bulbs as often, and the LED lights work much more efficiently.
So that'll be a cost saving eventually.
Yeah, the lighting is one of the biggest cost-saving drivers of the whole program, yes.
Yeah, I can hear them very well. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you, folks. I'll be seeing some of you guys on Friday, virtually, of course.
Thank you.
All right.
Welcome. Good night.
Okay,
Take
have a good
care.
night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Okay. I think,
Going back to Mr. Arlington.
Mr. Arlington, yes.
Okay, good evening again. I've learned that questions still linger about the reasons or why the decision is made to implement all remote learning. So I want to spend just a few minutes tonight reviewing and making a case for support about the when, why, and how the decision is made. And I'm going to use last Friday's decision to go all remote as an example to help operationalize the decision-making process. So beginning in June, through our reopening committee work, we identified the health and safety as our top mission, the top priority that matters most. It doesn't mean that the financial hardships that this type of year has on families doesn't matter. It doesn't mean some of the experiences students may be missing out on this year doesn't matter either. Those things matter very much. All this means is that what matters to us most, right? None of those other things will matter if we aren't physically and healthy and well. So we continue to lean into the core values that guided our committee work and allowed us this far to reopen schools safely and at the start of the school year. We continue to prioritize these values. Working my way up from the bottom here, we continue to offer whole child experiences. We've ramped up our technology access and support, curriculum, instruction, and assessment, and like in no other year, we've provided for really stellar social and emotional learning support. I'll talk more about that in a bit. But I want to start by looking at where we are. Look at this statistic. 65% of Union County students have been fully remote since March. As I delve into in a few minutes, each district has its own set of unique circumstances that allowed it to open in September or continue with March's remote learning. I'm not judging, we can't judge or compare district to district, right? But we can celebrate that we were able to offer parents a choice. We were able to get kids in school. If they elected to send their children back, we provided that for families. More specifically, today was the 62nd day of school. So we were able to open our buildings for in-person instruction 49 days at Harding and 47 days at Brewerly to date, which equates to opening for in-person instruction around 80% of our school year so far. Right? Keep in mind that certain individuals and students or classrooms were directed to quarantine. So how do we do this? With lots of support from community members, Board of Education members, township officials, and others. We planned. Our planning was thoughtful, reflective, and ongoing. It tapped into thinking about finances differently and human capital differently too. We have this amazing school medical team. I touch base with them regularly, and they're working really hard to keep us as safe as possible. Finally, we were able to do this through the auspices of teachers. I receive dozens of emails weekly just on the topic of great teachers, right? A teacher who's going above and beyond, or a teacher who has really bent over backwards for students. Teachers have reinvented their practice and committed to health and wellness protocols too. But I want to move away from celebrating and address lingering concerns. These are some of the top trending ones I'm in receipt of, so I wanted to post them up here. Take a look. I thought the best way to share more about our decision-making was to identify fallacies and then use information to reframe them. So here's the first one. I often refer to stakeholders, and here they are. I take full responsibility for the decision to keep schools open for in-person learning, but my decision is informed by the input of many, including, first and foremost, our town's Board of Health officer. He has the most up-to-date information and the most expertise. However, the input of these other constituents are relevant too, but the decision to go all remote or not is not one that's made from a majority vote. It's not one that requires consensus because that would be impossible. But we must rely on data instead, right? There's a cliche that says, "In God we trust, all others bring data." This school year, that matters most. The data informs 4 key considerations about deciding to implement all remote learning. I think it would be really useful for the school community to have a better understanding of those 4 considerations. The first is the New Jersey Department of Health's weekly report. Union County is in the Central East region. The report uses a color-coded system of COVID threat based on case rate, percent of COVID-like illnesses, percent positivity rates, and the total COVID activity level index score. The DOH guides us. When we're in orange or high risk, we are required to consider implementing remote learning. When we're in the red, we must. This is not the only consideration that guides us. We've been in the orange before and been open for in-person learning before. This week, we're in the orange, but aren't open for in-person. Here's why. Local data. This is why we pivoted to all remote learning. Our borough's health office has access to this data. It zooms in on the DOH's statewide report. This week, while our region was in orange, our town was in the very high-risk red category, along with 7 other towns in the county. As such, the strong recommendation was to implement all remote learning. What put Kenilworth and the other 7 towns in Union County in the red? A 7-day positivity rate greater than 20% per 100,000, a 7-day case rate greater than 20% per 100,000, and a rise in school-aged children testing positive in the last 14 days, right? But the decision is not a syllogism. It's not a matter of if this, then that. For example, we've pivoted to all remote learning when both the region and the town has been in the orange, and here's why. Because we've had school-based cases that fall into the New Jersey Department of Health's regional risk matrix recommendation to implement all remote learning. There were times we needed to shift because of the number of cases in our buildings. The new COVID-19 dashboard that we started last week and will continue weekly will help shed light on weekly COVID data. The 4th consideration is the one that's proactive, right? It doesn't respond to the data, but it forecasts it out, which is looking at post-holiday instruction. So we know that going all remote after Thanksgiving made sense. We saw a rise in the number of school community cases reported to us during the week of remote learning. It gave us time to contact trace, and as such, we were able to avoid having very many close contacts in school last week. It also allowed us to return with very few instances of positive cases. So here are the takeaways from those 4 considerations. While there is a decision-making framework that we use in accordance with the professional guidance, there's no formula for closing. An additional consideration is that while we are proud of our ability to open school and keep schools open, and while we should be proud that contagion is not on record as having occurred in the school, that can't be the reason we don't pivot to remote learning when the other considerations I just shared are at play. So sometimes feedback I get is, yes, the town is in the red, the state is in the orange, but we've been successful in keeping schools open and not spreading the virus. I respect that and I'm proud of that, but we also have to rely on the state and local data to keep everyone safe. So once a thoughtful decision is made, we look to communicate that out as soon as possible. We realize last-minute notifications, while sometimes can't be helped, are stressful and problematic for families. So again, here's a typical sequence of communication using last Friday's decision. On a 9 a.m. phone call with the health officer, the recommendation was made to pivot to remote learning. After notifying the groups on this timeline, parent notification was sent mid-afternoon. And my goal is for that notification to be more than we're closed because of the data. So to make that communication as useful as possible, sometimes it does take a few hours. I realize and appreciate students and adults may suffer when they're not in school. That's why we put so much attention on social and emotional learning this year. The work of our counselors, CST members, Care Plus clinicians is tremendous. I really can't say enough about that. There have been student survey check-ins, risk assessments, expanded curriculum, parent learning opportunities, and so much more. The Student Personnel Services Department will be sending out an update later in the week where the resources and supports are all in one place. As I mentioned earlier, it's helpful for parents and others to share what neighboring districts are doing, although each district and township's circumstances are unique. Comparing us to other small districts sometimes isn't overly useful, right? Because their township data may look different. Even their school data, of course, looks different. Nonetheless, I do confer regularly with my colleagues to explore thinking and decision-making. This is particularly useful when we're making proactive decisions, like exploring the possibility of pivoting to all remote instruction after the holidays. We'll be sharing more about the details of that decision by the end of this week. My sort of last-minute plea here is to really read closely our updates. We look to provide a lot of details, but also make them manageable and digestible in length because we recognize how busy everyone is. But the why behind the decision is always in the update, and the messages across my office, the principal's desks, and the director's departments all aim to stay on message. So many questions we receive daily are addressed in those updates, so I encourage the community to really check them out. And after they do, if questions persist, we still have our reopening email up and running. It's monitored closely, and emails are shared with the individuals most able to answer questions. I did this afternoon do like a screencast of this presentation so that in addition to just messaging it out tomorrow and putting it on the web tomorrow, if people are interested, they can look at the slides with me narrating over them to get a little more context about the decision-making. But even after that, if questions persist, I encourage community members to reach out. Yeah. Happy to take questions.
Anyone on the board have questions for Mr. Arlington related to?
Yeah, Paula does. Is there any timeline for when they might go back after Christmas, of course, I would expect?
So there are 21 public schools in Union County. I was just looking at this data today and reaching out to some colleagues. 5 or 6 of them haven't made a decision yet. These are rough numbers, right? 5 or 6 who have chosen to go back after 1 week, a handful that have chosen to go back after 2 weeks, and then some that are not going to return until February 1st, or they're all remote. They've been all remote, so it's really not like an issue for them. So that decision, we're figuring that out now.
So you're saying you don't know when we're going back?
I would assume it's after a week or 2. The 1 week after Thanksgiving really ended up making good sense for us, although you can make a case for 2 weeks as well. So that's kind of what needs to be figured out in the next couple of days.
Okay, now, what's going to happen with the children? Now, they've lost last year, and they're going to lose a lot of this year, and they're not all going to be able to keep up. Are we just going to pass them on, or it's just such a disservice? It's heartbreaking. So what's your plan for the kids that really aren't going to pass? And that'll be a lot of them, I'm sure.
Sure. So we are seeing a decrease in student performance. We are having conversations about what interventions may look like for that. I don't think that's a problem unique to Kenilworth, right? It's a problem across the nation, really. There was a big 60 Minutes piece on this not that long ago. But you do see some right now, stopgap attempts. So like even in tonight's agenda, you'll see I'm recommending for approval some supplemental instruction particularly for special ed students, right? We're also proactively planning for compensatory experiences, knowing that particularly with vulnerable populations, they may regress even more than gen ed students. But yes, I mean, there's going to be learning loss, and we're just doing our best to proactively address that. I'm upset with that answer. It's not a satisfying answer, but it's a very dissatisfying situation, if that makes sense, right? Yeah. I think that we have, I know this is a controversial statement, I think we should be proud and celebrate that we've gotten students in these buildings 80% of the school year, and then offered an option for parents who didn't want to send their children back. Is there room for improvement? Of course. Yeah. I think that's something noteworthy.
Yeah, I agree. Any other questions for Mr. Arlington on his presentation? Okay.
The last thing I have, President David, is the HIB report, which are all zeros, kind of just for the record, as well as the monthly enrollment report. You'll also see, as I alluded to in my Friday update to you, a pretty significant increase in the amount of students opting for virtual instruction, particularly at Brearley. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arlington. We can move on at this time to report of committees, review of resolutions,
Greg,
and,
Mr. David, we actually have 2 discussion items there.
okay, they were underneath that, okay.
The first discussion item is as you know, next a couple weeks, we're going to be reorganizing the Board of Education. And as such, one of the things we do is vote on our schedule of meetings for the upcoming year. So I previously sent the list of meetings to the board, and I just want to confirm that the meetings that we are proposing on the January 7th agenda are acceptable to everyone. It's following the same pattern where we have the regular meeting on the second Monday of the month, other than October, which would be the second Tuesday of the month, and we also have a couple of additional meetings, one the night of graduation, and our July and August meetings are shifted a little bit to allow us to fill some staffing that may be necessary for the upcoming school year, and finally the public hearing. So I could make it easy and share my screen there. So these are the proposed, yeah, there we go. Those are the proposed schedules there, going from January 2021 all the way to January 2022. So are there any questions about those meeting dates? No? Okay. The next topic I just want to briefly go over is, let me see if I could stop sharing that and share this. Share.
Oh, please.
Sure. As you recall, back a couple months ago, we talked about the financial impact of Chapter 44. We had Mr. Saradella come in to do a presentation on the impact that will have on our school district. We just recently conducted an open enrollment of our staff pursuant to Chapter 44. Employees had the opportunity to shift from their current health benefits program to the New Jersey Employer Health Benefits Program offered through Chapter 44. So this is basically what the impact was. We had 54 employees who chose to move from a Chapter 78-based program to a Chapter 44 program. As such, we saw a increase in the premiums. For a while, we anticipated that there might be a decrease, but once we got the rates back, we realized that the differential between the current program wasn't significant to come up with the overall decrease. So therefore, it was a kind of a disappointing to see a double whammy in that respect. A lot of that had to do with that our current Chapter 78 programs, plans, structure go between a PPO plan, which is the most expensive, down to a high deductible plan, which is the cheapest one. And two of the categories, the high deductible plan and the EPO, the premiums were actually less than the New Jersey Employee Health Plan. So automatically, anyone from that was in the high deductible plan or the EPO plan, we saw an increase in premiums to the school district. I don't know if that was factored when the state legislature looked at this. I don't know whether they assumed everyone in the state of New Jersey was in the higher PPO plans. But if you recall, this was supposed to be a win-win type situation where the school boards and the taxpayers benefited, as well as the teachers benefited from not having to pay the higher Chapter 78 contribution levels. So that's the premium side. We see a $15,000 increase, not significant, but we were anticipating a little bit to offset what we knew was going to be a reduction in the employee contributions. The total employee contributions were calculated at about $211,000. So for those 54 people to move from their current Chapter 78 based programs to their Chapter 44 programs, we're looking at a $211,000 loss of revenue, basically, to the school district. That's annualized. So then you combine the loss of premium, the increase in the premium, and the loss of revenue on the contribution side, and you're almost at $226,000 per year that we are losing. Now, I don't know in what world the legislature thought that this was a win-win to school boards and to taxpayers, but it certainly wasn't. So what I would like to do is get authority from the board, just basically to write our legislators, provide them with this data, and to say that right off the bat, you don't need to wait the 6 years to realize that this is not good for school boards, at least, especially our school board. I haven't heard too many schools that are different from us. Most schools that business administrators I've talked to are in very similar situations. So with your okay, I would like to pursue that, talk to our local legislatures, as well as getting my association involved and New Jersey school boards as well. Excuse me, as well involved in that deliberation to hopefully make some changes to this law to benefit schools moving forward. Okay?
We don't need a formal vote.
You do
on
not
that.
need a formal
So
vote on that.
I'll just ask, is there anyone who would object to Mr. Ganella sending that communication to our legislators?
Now, would the goal in doing that be to push the legislators to realize that if they're going to continue with this program, they need to up the funding to balance it out in some way?
That is a very good possibility that, hey, we didn't realize that this would be a financial, negative financially impact us. We thought when we passed this was going to benefit the school board. So yeah, maybe we would increase your funding to the tune of what you'd lose, or amend the law, change it, or revert it back. I don't know. The big beast in the room is the NJEA. They were the ones who were pushing the Chapter 44 to begin with. So I don't know how that will play politically. I don't know how it will play, but all I could say is this was not what we were anticipating, and I don't even know if it was what the legislators were anticipating. Maybe some people realized it, but not probably when they voted on it, they did not realize what they were voting for.
And then that second piece of the insurance that our company was talking to about, that was going to be coming into play come July of next year.
Garden State Plan, right.
That was supposed to be, if I recall correctly, something that was going to be even more of a loss to the district right from the get-go.
Correct, correct. I don't know if how many people would make that jump to the Garden State Plan, because the benefits were significantly, even more dramatically less than the New Jersey Employees Health Plan benefit levels. So I'm not sure how many people would do that, but once again, as you alluded, in May and June, we're going to have another open enrollment, and we could see a whole nother flock of exodus. I mean, people had a very short period of time window to make this decision, so maybe they're going to say, hey, now that I've seen what my fellow colleagues have reaped the benefits of the savings in Chapter 78 contributions because they went to that level.
Because I know, like, some of my colleagues at work were holding back on it because they were concerned, well, what was going to happen with particular Dr. A or Dr. B, or how was it going to affect them? So they were deciding not to change just yet, but planning to kind of sit back and see how the people who did change worked through it.
Right, yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I'd like to pursue that, and we'll see where that takes us. Okay? Thank you.
We're ready to move on? Yes. Yeah. Okay, so just before we move on to our report of committees, review of resolutions, and board discussion, just want to take a couple of minutes to make 2 points. First, on behalf of the board, I want to commend and congratulate Mr. Ulasevich and the Be Nice Company for, really showing us what the young people in our district are capable of, and it's really refreshing to see that they care, what they're doing and thinking of others. And then next, on behalf of the board, just congratulate Mr. Arlington for being named the Borough of Kenilworth's Employee of the Year. I think it's a well-deserved accolade. The things that we've been able to accomplish, or he's been able to accomplish as superintendent in this very difficult year is, from my perspective, as board president, truly amazing. So, again, congratulations. And with that, we'll move on to our first committee report, Finance and Facilities. Mr. Ladati.
Good evening, everyone. For my report, this evening, the full board got to hear our solar project and the ESIP projects that the committee has been working on since last spring. To be honest, it's good to see that these projects are moving out of the planning stages and into construction and implementation phase. The committee and Mr. Gunnell will keep you advised on the leasing agreements and the funding projects as we move forward with those. The administrators have been working on the portions of the 2021-2022 budgets. Mr. Gunnell has also been updating the Excel programs and preparing for their January submissions. The mid-year budget, which is typically conducted in December each year, has not been scheduled as the county executive superintendent is waiting for additional guidance from the Department of Education on how we should proceed during this and how they should be conducted during this pandemic. The 20 annual audit has been extended. This seems to be happening every year because of the General Accounting Standards Board and with their pension issues. We don't have the pension numbers. That has been pushed back till February 6th of 21. And obviously, with the district is prepared for possibly our first significant snowfall of this week. The equipment is in working condition. The staff's ready to do the great job they always do. Resolutions. Mr. Arlen to present the superintendent's report, which is number 1 on the list. Number 2 and 3 are the financials and billing reports. I reviewed each of those, and they seem to be in order or are in order. There are no line item transfers that meet the $5,000 cap. Number 6 is the approval for the January 6th organizational meeting. 7 is the school security grant. The funds will be used to purchase surveillance equipment, access control systems, and site barriers. 8 is the busing contract for transportation to VOTEC in the Lifelong Training Center. And finally, 9 is the cooperative purchasing agreement for computers, microcomputers. And that's all I have.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Ladati? Okay. Next up is Personnel and Management, Mr. Haberthon.
Good evening, everybody, and happy holidays. There's 10 resolutions tonight. Resolution number 10 is the acceptance of a retirement of a Harding lunch aide. Resolution number 11 is the approval for additional teaching staff for the teaching sections for school year 2020-2021. Resolution 12 establishes a robotics club and approves a volunteer for club advisors. Resolution 13 is the approval of professional development days. Resolution 14 is modification of the paraprofessional aides for the current school year. Resolution 15 is the approval of additional services, as mentioned earlier by Superintendent Arlington. Resolution 16 is the approval of extracurricular stipend positions. Resolution 17 approves unused sick days for a retired classroom aide. Resolution 18 approves home instruction services. And Resolution 19 is the approval of substitute staff.
Okay.
Any questions? Thank you.
No, but
Did you have one, Paulette?
yeah, I have a question. I understand you very clearly, so I don't know what you're doing different from everyone else has been speaking, but keep at it. I can hear you clearly, so I'm having problems. It's all garbled. Could be, the mask doesn't help, but thank you for speaking clearly.
I'm just really good at public speaking, Paula. Thank you.
All right, next up is Curriculum and Instruction, Mrs. Zimmerman.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Curriculum instruction is going to be short and sweet. We have 2 resolutions this month. Resolution number 20 is to adopt the curriculum for an AP computer science class. And number 21 is for the HIB report for October, which was reviewed at the November meeting. Any questions?
Any questions? All right,
Good?
hearing none.
Okay. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Next up, Policy Review, Mrs. Braun.
We have just one resolution, Resolution 22, to adopt bylaw 0164.6. It is, it's being resolved that the Board of Education suspend bylaw 0131 that requires 2 readings to adopt the bylaw or policy in order to adopt bylaw 0164.6 with 1 reading to be in compliance with the new emergency regulations regarding remote meetings held during a governor-declared emergency pursuant to NJAC 5:39-1.1 through 1.7. Any questions?
Okay. All right, thank you. We're up to old business. Does anyone have anything under old business?
Just quick,
Miss-
I was thinking about it last week or the week before. What's up with the TAB committee? Is that moving? Are we having any meetings with the teachers and administrators and?
Sure. I haven't pursued it since the pandemic, but I can if there's an interest or want.
I just figured, especially because, we can utilize the Zoom or whatever else, it might be a good time to be able to be getting together and talking about how's it working, what's not working, from a firsthand perspective.
We are in negotiations, though. Usually we just,
Well, we've gone down that path before, and when we were in negotiations, we still had tab committee meetings within the parameters, and both sides were very good, and Anthony was on it with me at the time, and both sides were very good about knowing what was and was not something to really get into, until we got to that very contentious period in negotiations, and then we sort of just stepped back because it was a little hot and heated all around. But in the regular time, even with negotiations, we were still having rather productive meetings, I thought.
Sure. So I do have teacher names from the KEA already, so I'll follow up with President David for board representation, and I'll get back to the board.
Well, I know he had on our thing at the beginning of the year, he did appoint people to tab. It's on our roster.
Okay, I'll follow up.
And Kyle, Mr. Dave, I'm available too, because I'm, my job is not when we're at to be somewhere or be on calls or at work. So
Yeah, I mean-
would volunteer to be on that committee again.
Realistically, obviously, we're basically at the end of the year. There'll be a reorganization in January. The members of TAB may, from a board perspective, may or may not change. But definitely, it's something that we should bring back and get moving. So
Sure.
I am in favor of that.
Sounds good.
Anything else under old business? Seeing nothing. Anything under new business? Paulette, you have something under? Oh, let's see you lit up. Okay, then we can move on to,
I think she's talking, but she's not.
oh, well. Okay, we are at the point where we can open the meeting to the public. Mr.
Motion to open the meeting to the public?
Right, we have a motion and a second. Motion by Mrs. Zimmerman, second by Mrs. Braun. Mr. Ganella.
Public comment will now be accepted. The Board of Education sets the limit for public speaking at the Board of Education meeting at 5 minutes per person unless prior permission has been granted. Education for extended time pursuant to Board of Education Bylaw 0167. Public comments are being accepted by the following means: by calling into the board meeting venue at 908-931-9696, extension 2325, that's extension 2325, during this period of the meeting, or in person at the meeting during the public comment section, or electronically via email to publiccomments@kenilworthschools.com. These messages must have been received by 4:00 p.m. on the night of the meeting. All emails received by the deadline will be read during the public comment section of the meeting. Comments will be taken in the following order: phone calls, in-person comments, and email comments. For the record, please include your name and address in all comment requests. So first up is the phone call, and there's traditionally usually about a 60-second delay, or actually 30-second, but we give it a minute delay. So we will wait 1 minute to see if anyone calls in on 908-931-9696, 2325. Fifth caller wins a...
Do we know how many people are on the live broadcast?
I checked before, there were 14, I think.
14.
Can you see, Bruno, how many people are online? 15. Well, we could announce right now that there are no members of the public here to make any comments.
That's correct.
And I did not receive any emails by 4 o'clock to public comments at kenilworthschools.com. So if the phone doesn't ring in the next 15 seconds, probably entertain a motion to close.
I make a
Would someone
motion
like to make a
close
motion?
To the public.
All right, I see a motion from Mr. Ladati. Do I have a second from Mr. Biner? All those in favor of closing the public portion of the meeting, say aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? Okay, the meeting is closed to the public. We'll move on to roll call of resolutions.
Okay, we have, each committee has resolutions this evening, so we'll start off with the Finance and Facilities Resolution, 1 through 9. Mr. Ladati, would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we vote on resolutions 1 through 9 for the facilities and finances.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion was made by Mr. Ladati, seconded by Dr. Panici, to vote on resolutions 1 through 9. Are there any exclusions to those? Okay, this is for voting resolutions 1 through 9 on the agenda. Biner?
Yes.
Braun?
Yes?
Drogan?
Yes.
Haberther?
Yes.
Jankowicz?
Yes.
Ladati?
Yes.
Anthony?
Yes. Sorry, I thought I said
Okay.
yes.
Panici?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Motion's carry unanimously. This is for personnel and management resolutions, 10 through 19 on the agenda. Mr. Hibbether,
Make a motion to move resolutions 10 through 19 to be voted on.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mrs. Braun. Thank you. These motions were made by Mr. Hibbether, seconded by Mrs. Braun. These resolutions are 10 through 19 on the personnel and management resolutions. Are there any that need to be voted on separately? No? Okay. Resolutions 10 through 19. Mr. Biner?
Yes.
Braun?
Yes?
Drogan?
Yes.
Haberther?
Yes.
Jankowicz?
Yes.
Ladati?
Yes.
Panici?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Motion's carry unanimously. So curriculum instruction resolutions 20 and 21. Mrs. Zimmerman?
I move that we vote on resolutions 20 and 21 on tonight's agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Braun? Okay, motion was made by Mrs. Zimmerman, seconded by Mrs. Braun. For resolutions 20 and 21 on the agenda. Do any of those need to be voted on separately? No? Okay. 20 and 21. Biner?
Yes.
Braun?
Yes?
Drogan?
Yes.
Haberther?
Yes.
Jankowicz?
Yes.
Ladati?
Yes.
Panici?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Motion's carry unanimously. And last but not least,
Make a motion to move resolution 22 policy.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Mrs. Braun, seconded by Mr. Haberther. Resolution number 22. Mr. Biner?
Yes.
Braun?
Yes?
Drogan?
Yes.
Haberther?
Yes.
Jankowicz?
Yes.
Ladati?
Yes.
Panici?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Do we need to go into executive session this evening, Mr. Ladati?
Yes, we do briefly. We need to go into executive session, so I will read the resolution. Be it resolved, the Board of Education, the Board of Education meet in private session from which the public shall be excluded to discuss the topics of KEA negotiations, all units, which private discussions being held pursuant to Section 7B and 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act. The matters under discussion will be disclosed to the public as soon as final decisions are made and voted upon. The Board of Education is going into closed executive session to discuss the above matters, but will not be taking any further action this evening. The meeting will adjourn at the end of the executive session. Therefore, this will conclude the live YouTube portion of the meeting. Thank you for participating this evening, and the Board of Education looks forward to meeting in person when the restrictions have been lifted. And so is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion has it. Okay, motion in closed session. You want to say?
Oh, yeah, before we actually go into close, I would like to wish my colleagues, the administration, the staff, and the entire school community, and borough community for that matter, a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, and a very happy healthy, and safe new year. Let's hope that 22 brings better things. So thank you all for your efforts this past year. I really appreciate it as president. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got you.
We